The conversation ended, and you walked away thinking about everything that went wrong. The thing you said that came out differently than you meant, the pause that lasted too long, the joke that landed quietly, the moment where you couldn't tell if they were actually interested or just being polite. By the time that you got home, you had already decided. They probably didn't think much of you. It was fine, but not great. They were nice enough, but you could tell. Well, you were wrong. Almost certainly. There's a name for what just happened. Researchers call it the liking gap, the consistent, measurable distance between how much someone actually liked you after a conversation and how much you assumed they did. Study after study finds the same thing. People walk away from interactions underestimating how well they went, not slightly, but by a significant margin. Strangers paired up for 5-minute conversations, college students meeting their roommates for the first time, coworkers after team meetings. In all of it, the pattern holds. The person on the other side of the conversation liked you more than you thought, enjoyed talking to you more than you gave them credit for, remembered the exchange more warmly than your postmortem suggested. The gap is real, and it runs in one direction. Almost nobody overestimates how much they were liked. The bias doesn't go both ways. It just quietly pulls in one direction every time, and most people never notice it's happening. Here's why it works the way that it does. During a conversation, you are managing two things at once, actually being in the conversation and watching yourself be in it, running a performance review in real time. You notice what you should have said differently the moment after you said it. You feel the slight stumble in your delivery. You clock the second where you lost the thread. The other person is not doing any of this about you. They are in their own head, managing their own performance review, probably missing the same signals from you that you are missing from them. The signs that they were enjoying it, the moments they leaned in, the fact that they kept asking questions. You don't see those things clearly because you're too busy monitoring yourself. And the gaps left by your inward focus get filled with a default assumption, which is usually the pessimistic one. So after the conversation, you walk away with a highlight reel of your own mistakes and almost no memory of how the other person was actually responding. And you use that as your evidence for how it went. It isn't good evidence. But here's the part that most people haven't heard, because it comes from a separate study published a few years after the liking gap research. A team of researchers looked at something slightly different. Not how much people liked each other after conversations, but how often they kept thinking about each other afterward. They called it the thought gap. The finding was the same shape as the liking gap, but one step further. After a conversation ends, people continue to think about the person they talk to. They replay things that were said. They revisit an idea that came up. They remember the exchange hours or sometimes days later, but they assume the other person is not doing the same. You think about them more than you assume they think about you, and the research says you're wrong about that too. The person you talked to this week, the one you left thinking probably forgot about you immediately, almost certainly didn't. They went home and replayed something you said. Maybe the specific word you used for something, maybe a detail you mentioned, maybe just the general texture of how you came across. They thought about it, and you assumed they didn't because you can't see inside someone else's head, and the default assumption, again, is the quiet one. What the two findings together suggest is something worth sitting with. The inner monologue you run after social interactions, the one that finds evidence for you why you didn't come across well, why they probably didn't think much of it, why you should have handled it differently, that monologue is not a reliable narrator. It has access to all your doubts and almost none of their actual experience. And their actual experience was almost certainly better than what you've decided it was. You were liked more than you thought. You stayed on their mind longer than you assumed. The version of you they took away from that conversation was not the version you spent the rest of the day picking apart.